Welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast for leaders of growing restaurant companies looking to take their businesses to the next level. In nearly 2 decades covering the restaurant industry, I have gained access to some of this industry's most influential decision makers, and I'm letting you in on the conversations. In today's episode, you'll learn from a restaurateur who inherited a brand from his father and who has found a way to forge his own path as a second-generation owner while also honoring the hardworking, hospitable reputation that his late father left behind. Mark Greenblatt is the president of Barry Bagel, a Toledo-based franchise that was founded by Barry Greenblatt back in 1972. Mark was born a few years later, and now, 11 years after Barry passed away, he's fulfilling his dream of putting his father's name in lights all over the country. Mark joined the podcast to talk about the lessons he picked up working alongside his dad, how he's learned big lessons from dumb mistakes, and how he's finding efficiencies in the business without messing with a good thing that his dad started. If you learned something from this episode, go follow Takeaway wherever you're listening and leave some feedback. It's the best way to get that lesson to a fellow restaurant leader. Jumping now into my interview with Barry Bagel's Mark Greenblatt. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 5 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I'm sitting down with Mark Greenblatt, the president of Barry Bagels. Mark, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, Mark, such a fun story. You being the son of Barry, you are the son of the founder of this great bagel concept. Now you're running the show, but we've got to start way back. I mean, this company's been around. I was reading your history before this. You guys have been around for a long, long time. Tell me about the origin of Barry Bagels.
Yeah, we've been around since 1972, so 53 years. Is that right?
Wow.
Yeah, long time. My dad started it, had this crazy idea, loved food from Detroit, decided he wanted to always loved the food business, wanted to get into something food related. Was working at a bagel shop in Ann Arbor, Michigan, sort of followed my mother, who was going to school at Eastern Michigan, working at a place called the Bagel Factory. Decided he wanted to do his own thing, looked around, seeing where bagels could be in the near area. Unfortunately, he joked with me. He looked Denver, Orlando, Phoenix, and Toledo. And I used to give him a whole bunch of crap. I was like, "How'd you end up in Toledo?" It seemed like there were some better opportunities, but I think he liked the proximity of being in Detroit with family, or being near Detroit, for that matter. Found a spot. Actually opened a place, which is our current home corporate store in Sylvania, Ohio. Called it the Bagel Place. Took a gentleman by the name of Peter with him from the Bagel Factory. He was about 10 years older than him. Opened the Bagel Place, got it up and running, but shortly thereafter, Peter Johnson is his last name, really didn't look to expand. He was just sort of doing it for fun. My dad bought him out and subsequently opened his second store about 10 years later and renamed it Barry Bagels, and has been kind of rocking and rolling ever since.
Yeah, well, as a fellow Ohioan and with in-laws in the Toledo area, I feel like I can chuckle with you alongside you about that. Now, Toledo, lovely city, so all of you in Toledo,
yes,
it is certainly a lovely city. But I love being rooted to in Detroit, Ann Arbor. I love the story of that. But I'm curious, thinking about the Bagel Factory in Ann Arbor, which is that still around?
So the Bagel Factory is no longer around. Okay. Oddly enough, we kept the name. Our dough production facility is called the Bagel Factory. It's actually its legal name. It does still reside in Ann Arbor, but the retail location is no longer.
Gotcha. I was in Ann Arbor last week. Lovely, lovely town, and great food scene. But if I had to tell you anything about Ann Arbor as a food town, I would just say it's a college town. Which is to say, does it have a bagel culture? Was there anything about Ann Arbor that influenced the type of bagels that your father was doing?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure. He found this bagel shop. It had just been running. They actually had apartments right next door called the Bagel Factory Apartments. home of the Mud Bowl for the University of Michigan. Just an old bagel shop, nothing to it. I think I honestly don't know the true history of it, but I believe that was owned by a few gentlemen from Detroit. And, bagels were pretty new for the Midwest
Mhm.
50 some odd years ago. They're primarily, a New York, East Coast, New Jersey type deal. I don't know how they became popular in Ann Arbor, but we've actually had a store there for, I think we just had our 43rd anniversary there, not on campus, just off campus. It's like you said, a great town, a lot of food, but they love their bagels there too, as hopefully most cities in the
Yeah.
country.
Well, you talk about like that, East Coast,
Yeah,
origin for bagel, or just the passion for bagels. I mean, it's almost like barbecue, or there. As far as like just foods that places really embrace, it's kind of their area. Of course, New York being the biggest here with bagels. There are entire restaurant brands that are built off of replicating the water of New York just to get the bagels. I'm sure you follow them because they're probably competitors. I guess I bring this up to ask, like, is there a distinct style in general for bagels that you're trying to follow, or is it just trying to get the best possible bagel that you can do?
sure. Yeah, I think going back to 50 years, we emulated a New York style bagel, which is a boil first, bake second bagel. They joke with the water on the East Coast. There's the myth behind that, but it just is a boil and bake, where a lot of the new generation bagels are more steam injected. It's a different process, a quicker process, a little more bread-like. Now, to be fair, when we came to the Midwest, when my dad started it, people were not used to that sort of crispy, hard outside bagel, and they were popular at first, not as popular as he had hoped. We tinkered with the recipe over the years and came with what we have. We still boil and bake. We bake all day long, but we've sort of come up with our own sort of Midwest twist on the East Coast bagel. So it is still crispy on the outside, not quite as hard, a little soft and chewier inside.
Okay, so when this brand started, when your
Yes,
dad opened this, you must have been a small child. Were you even born?
I wasn't even born yet. I was born in 77. We
So
opened in 72.
all
Yeah,
you've ever known is the bagel business.
my whole life.
Tell me
Yeah.
about those early memories of your dad running this business and your impression of it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we just getting going. We made all the bagels in this original store in Sylvania. So it looked like a Willy Wonka factory. Bags of flour, machines everywhere. I remember crawling up and down the bags of flour, taking naps on them, just seeing dough everywhere. It's what I grew up with. Super cool. And as I grew up and as we evolved, we got a little bigger. That's where we subsequently moved the factory to Ann Arbor. But yeah, it's food is all I've ever grown up with. It's all we know
Yeah.
here.
Is that I mean, I think of some friends and people I know who their parents were in one industry, and they're in that
Sure.
industry, and it's pretty common for the kids of business owners to want to go the other direction.
Yeah.
It's all they ever know. They're like, I got to go do my own thing. I want as far away from bagels as possible. Did you ever have that feeling?
Oh yeah. I honest to God went to school I really wanted to be a veterinarian.
Mm,
That's what I wanted to do, veterinarian. I quickly found out that I did not have a big love for blood. Uh,
Mine or did you?
so I didn't realize it, but realized it pretty quickly. Yeah, I didn't have a ton of interest in the business. I mean, I loved going there. I loved watching my dad work. I worked in it, but it didn't call to me. It really wasn't until when I was at school, my dad had sort of fallen ill for a short time. We didn't have a very large bench of people, and I was kind of the most familiar with the business. So I was coming back and forth from school, helping run it. Realized that, you know what, this is a pretty good gig. I liked it a lot more than I originally thought. And then when he got better, realized that I really liked working with him on a day-to-day basis. So that's where my affinity towards it come about.
Had you worked in the shops as a kid? I mean, from your earliest
A
days?
little bit, a
Okay.
little bit. Played a lot of sports. Honestly, he sort of kept, I have two sisters. He really kept us out of it, not by choice, but he worked hard. It's a hard business. I think he wanted us to go off and do other things.
Hmm.
Not to say that he wouldn't love or wouldn't have loved for us to follow in his footsteps. Just as you know, restaurant business is a grind. I think they, between him and my mother, always envisioned us, being doctors or lawyers or whatnot. But
Hmm.
it's just not how it worked out.
Yeah.
It's where I inevitably ended up.
Well, and the franchising has been more recent. So at that
Sure.
time when your dad got ill and you helped him with the business,
Yeah.
did you have just a couple of shops at that point?
We had about 6 stores at the time. We competition sort of started to come about. Bagels became a little more popular, so we actually started surrounding the area with some other stores. Probably not the greatest move on our part. Probably expanded a little too quickly
Mm.
with fear of competition. So we opened at one point, I think we had 10 corporate locations, scaled that back to 6 wonderful ones, and then the competition actually went away. So that was a good deal. But we did start talking about 15 years ago about expanding out of our market area. It's funny. I have two sisters that are in Cleveland. We really looked at opening in Cleveland.
Hmm.
And then my dad looked at me and said, "Are you planning on moving to Cleveland?" And I said, "Nah." He said, and I asked him if he was planning on moving to Cleveland. And he said no, and because we both realized after many years of working that we do well because we run the restaurants ourselves, and neither of us had planned on moving to Cleveland. So that's where we got the idea collectively that maybe franchising was the way to go.
Well, it's only a couple hour drive, so you could just do that.
Yeah,
Right?
could have done it, but it's tricky. It's
Yeah.
tricky trying to run things remotely.
Yeah. Well, and tell me too, because like, you know, your dad didn't necessarily foresee you guys coming into the business. Was he
Sure.
content at keeping it small, or did he have scaling always in his mind?
He wanted to keep it local.
Mm.
We had that store in Ann Arbor because I think he always wanted to get back to his roots there. But he always wanted to keep it Northwest Ohio, and then the Ann Arbor store. And he was very fortunate. He was a great person to work for, and that showed with his employees, and it really is employee loyalty. We have or had probably over a dozen employees that worked minimum 25 years, probably another 10 over 30 years, half a dozen over 40 years. And we have 4 currently over 40 years. Where I said our stores run well because we're there. We are and we're fortunate to have wonderful sort of extensions of ourselves to be at these locations.
Sure.
But they were right, under our wings
Hmm.
and very trustworthy. And so, yeah, to go out further than that would have been tricky without subsequent, family members or whatnot to take that name further.
Sure. Yeah. This is a little thing, but you must get this all the time. Is there a reason it's not a possessive? Why it's not Barry's bagel?
Yeah, people ask all the time,
Yeah.
and I always think about changing it, but then I always think I'm going to get struck by lightning or whatnot. As I understand it, and I was never given a wonderful explanation,
Hmm.
and people call it berries all the time. Berries bagels, and it rolls off the tongue better that way. He always explained it as his name was Barry Bagels, so that was literally his name, Barry Bagels. So
Yeah.
that's what he called it. Does it make sense? Not particularly, but that's how he liked it. He was the boss.
Hmm.
We've left it alone.
Yeah, I mean, when I'll be honest, I was one of those people. I think I always assumed it was Barry's Bagels as a
Yeah.
customer. I didn't even look up to see if there was an apostrophe s there.
No,
And
it's
as I was preparing for this, I was like, oh, there's no apostrophe s, and it doesn't change my life at all. I just find it curious.
no, yeah. It's just everyone there's Barry Bagels.
Yeah.
That was his name.
Well, it kind of feels like you could have a mascot. I mean, that might be weird because it was your dad, but it feels like you should have a
Yeah.
mascot, Barry Bagels, right?
No, no, yeah, and listen, we use him as our branding as much as possible.
Mhm.
When he did pass away, unfortunately, like I said, I loved. I think it's tricky for fathers and sons, or fathers and daughters, or mothers and sons and whatnot to work together. I don't think it's a dynamic that works well all the time.
Mhm.
We were fortunate that we worked very, very well together. Subsequently, when he passed away, it was, devastating on a bunch of levels, but I missed having him in the store on a daily basis. And so we had a mutual friend that made bobbleheads actually for Major League Baseball. And when my dad was still around, he wanted a bobblehead very badly. Actually
Mhm.
wanted it made of me. And I said, nobody cares about a bobblehead of
You're not
me.
Barry.
So I'm not Barry. So we made it of him,
Mm,
and just a normal little tiny bobblehead. Of course, we had to buy like 20,000 of them. So uh,
right.
when we're done here, you'll give me your address and I'll send you one because I still have a
Hey,
lot left.
nice.
But when he passed away, I asked the guy if they ever made life-size bobbleheads. Ironically, they did. Had to buy two. Worked on pictures off the little one, and we tweaked it up a little bit. And my dad, he was sort of synonymous with always either A, having a cell phone in one hand,
Mm,
or B, having a Diet Coke in another in the other hand.
mhm.
So we worked it out where we had a life-size bobblehead made with a cell phone in one hand and a Diet Coke in the other. And again, I had two. I honestly planned on keeping one in the original store and one at our house.
Mhm.
But Laura, the gal who's been with us now 52 years, at one of her anniversary presents, I couldn't think of anything to get for her, so I felt like I should probably send one up to Ann Arbor and have them up there. So those are where the two big life-size bobbleheads reside, and subsequently they do actually bobble. He is our marketing guy, Barry.
Mm,
We use him as much as possible, and it's wild. Kids come in all the time; they take pictures with him. Parents come in all the time and take pictures with him. I mean, like I said,
mm,
we've been around 53 years. A lot of people have grown up with my dad. He was in the store 7 days a week. I always use the joke that I should create an eighth day of the week if I could, because if I only work 7 days a week, or if I only worked 6 days a week subsequently, I was that kid that didn't work quite as hard as his dad
mhm.
because he was always in the store. Yes. So that was a long-winded way to get to why his name's Barry Bagels. But
Yeah, I love that.
that's why there's no apostrophe, and that's why there's no possessive.
Honestly, I love it because I mean, this idea of him as kind of the mascot, the spirit of Barry Bagels, if you
Yeah,
will. It's like to me that seems like it makes it more personable, more authentic. It feels more like your corner store, your local corner store or whatever, if there is a face attached to it because you feel like somebody's kind of taking care of you. So it makes a lot of sense. I'm curious though. I mean, you obviously worked with him. He passed away about 11 years ago. Is that right?
that's correct.
Um,
Yeah.
if I'm doing math here correctly, you had almost 40 years with him, learning from him.
Yes.
And I'm curious,
Yes.
what are some of the lessons that you picked up from him that you've taken with you into your leadership role at the company?
Most importantly, work hard, work in the store, from a working standpoint, work every job. As far as being the boss, everyone can be the boss people around and sit behind a desk and make phone calls and whatnot. He worked in the store. He was behind the counter making sandwiches every day. He greeted people. He knew their names. He knew their kids. He knew everything about them. And if he didn't know anything about him, he made you think he knew everything about you. And that was huge, and that made the customer want to come in each day, and so that's a huge lesson for me. And I, try and do the same thing. I get the stuff done. The job's gotten a little bigger since he's been gone, and with the franchising and whatnot, my role has taken on uh, a little few more things than what he had to do at the time. But ask anyone, I try and visit all my corporate stores that are all mine in the morning. I try and knock out the franchise stuff as best I can in the mid morning, and then in the middle of lunch, try not to bother me because I'm behind the counter making sandwiches. I'm baking bagels, and by the way, I like doing it. It's not
Hmm.
something that they forced me to do, but I saw that he enjoyed doing it. He instilled upon me that it's fun, and it helped him be successful. And I hope it continues our success. And I try and sort of preach that to even the prospective franchisees. So listen, the business will go as far and as hard as you guys want to work it. He always said it's not a hobby. That's how he was. I think he treated his employees well, which I try to do the same. And, like I said, a lot of these employees that have been around a long, long time, they're still here. They could have left when he passed away, but they seem to see the same work ethic and are treated the same way by me because that's what I learned from him.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you've been, I understand, in a leadership role now since 2008, and you're president of this group. When you came in, was there anything in particular that you wanted to do to kind of put the Mark stamp on it? Was there any ways you wanted to change the business, or have there been anything? Has there been anything that you've done that you feel like has kind of taken the reins from your dad, but also kind of moved it in a direction that's distinctly you?
Yeah, not a ton. I mean, I always joked, if I changed anything, if we did nothing, let's start with that. If I did nothing and change it to Mark's Bagels, people would say, "Yeah, well, it wasn't quite as good as it was when Barry was around." So, don't mess with a good thing. But since I've taken over, just more like efficiencies and whatnot, we've come up with, these stores that can run in a smaller footprint, that can, we come up with this hub and spoke sort of model that we've pitched to the franchisees. I can't take a ton of credit for it because I sort of fell upon it by accident.
Mm,
We had a store in Toledo that used to be 7,500 square feet
cool.
that got redeveloped. They built a Costco in the area, and the whole shopping center got redeveloped. And so they wanted to keep us there, but they had to shrink us to a 3,500 square foot footprint.
Hmm.
So I was tasked to redesign this store. I thought I had it perfect. I had everything set, new efficient line that sort of moved everyone through quickly, as opposed to this original store that we have is sort of a one-on-one sort of customer. You come in, I take your order, I make your order.
Mm,
It's not very efficient, but it's how it's been for 53 years, and people they're used to it.
yeah.
It's the only store left that operates that way. That's sort of been my mark. All the new stores operate much quicker, but every time I try and tweak the original store, people get a little funny about it. So I've left it alone.
Mm,
But this store that we shrunk, like I said, I had it perfect, all set to operate the way I've been operating these new locations. And at the very 11th hour, I realized that I forgot to put a bagel oven in the store.
oops.
And yeah, big oops. And it was a little too late in the game, and the plans were about to get engineered, and we were already behind schedule. So I
Hmm.
panicked and I said, you know what? How about this? Our original store, which is almost 8,000 square feet, which has a huge oven in it. I said, why don't we add a second oven to it? It's only 5 miles away. Let's figure out how to just run bagels back and forth to it 10 times a day, whenever they need them, because we want the customers to have hot bagels. So we'll just
Yes.
stay in constant communication, run bagels back and forth. Let's see how that works. And if we have to knock out the rest of the seating in the store in 6 months, we'll figure out how to do that. So it's one of the few times my dad wasn't real happy with me, but we went with it. And by luck of the draw, it worked. And we've actually now sort of incorporated that in our franchise plan
Mm,
with this sort of hub and spoke model because, as we've grown into these newer cities like a Columbus, like a Cleveland, we're a little spoiled in Toledo. The rents are pretty fair here, but these bigger cities, rents are a little tougher to build out a 3,500, 4,000 square foot store. With today's rents, it's so expensive and hard to come by. But what we sort of found out with this hub and spoke model, you can find maybe like a B plus, A minus location, pay decent rent, put a big oven in, and then maybe find a spoke location, A plus, so to speak, at maybe like 1,200, 1,500 square feet, minimal
Yeah.
seating, no oven, transport bagels back and forth again all day long. Really push carry out and operate that way. And then basically, your build out costs are significantly less because no seating, like I said, no oven, great location, no HVAC, no ventilation, all the stuff that really, really gets you with build outs and stores. Then you can basically build almost not two stores for the price of one, but kind of one and a half. So, like I said, sort of my stamp on the innovation. I can't take full credit. It was kind of built on a screw up, but a screw up that worked out
You
that
were willing to take
was
the
my
lesson,
fault.
though. You were willing to take
Yeah,
the lesson, and that's
I was
important.
going to take the heat, but
Yeah,
that's sort of been my my contribution
that's
since
hilarious.
2008.
Well, but
Yeah,
wild because I'm like 8,000 square feet, even 4,000 square feet. What are you doing
yeah.
with that much space? Is it mostly kitchen and oven space?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
back then, like that store that was 8,000 square feet. So way back when strip centers were built, they were built at grocery store depth.
Right.
So, 150 feet deep. So when you expanded, we had the opportunity to expand. You could expand right to left, but you had to expand if you expanded 10 feet or even 15 feet right to left, you still had 150 feet deep.
Yeah.
So, now when they build strip centers, they're 75, 80 feet deep. So, and then they build the grocery store by themselves. They're not building the whole place to fit either department stores or grocery stores. So this was just, when they built them way back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Sure.
That's why they were so big.
And did you utilize with a lot of seating
We
or
had a lot of seating. That store
okay?
sat probably 250 people. It was big. We had a
Wow.
salad bar. We had a
Oh, wow.
carry out. We had dine in, an ice cream bar. It was a great store. It was very cool. It
And that's
just,
not the model for the franchise locations, right?
no, this was,
Yeah.
this was way back again when this was our second store.
Okay.
We had built, like I said, the salad bar was real popular. When we got rid of the salad bar, I think I got death threats. People really loved that salad bar, but
Wow. It's the second
it,
concept, Mark. You just got
it's
to go
yeah.
start out your own salad concept.
Now the salad bar. Listen, I was happy for it to go. The health department was happy for them to go. You don't see too many salad bars these days.
No, that was a hot
They are.
thing for a while there. Didn't Wendy's or
Yes.
somebody have a salad bar?
Wendy's had the super bar, I think it was.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
None of them have come back. I think
there's reason for it.
COVID wiped them all out. Yeah.
That's right. All right. So, but I mean, to this point, like,
Yeah.
again, like, this is not just a swing in for a bagel at the counter. You do have sandwiches. I mean, this is, for all intents and purposes, a bakery cafe concept where bagels are the star. And I guess this kind of just gets us to the state of things with the bagel category, if you want to call it that. How much pressure has there been to innovate? Because in this time that you've been around, you've had Panera, Corner Bakery, of course, Einstein Brothers, Brugger's. So as you guys have scaled, obviously a little bit more slowly than some of those concepts, have you felt this pressure to innovate on the menu and the occasions that people can enjoy Barry Bagels, or has it always been sticking to just kind of what you guys do and doing it well?
We've stuck a lot to what we know. A lot of the old time bagel shops truly were just bagels and cream cheese, and we actually are seeing that come back a little bit too. We do a real big breakfast, a real heavy lunch, and a lot of our stores do a decent dinner too.
Hmm.
We bring in the best deli meats we can. Our breakfast sandwiches, our egg sandwiches, which we call our eggles, are super popular. We've always served them all day long, not like our friends at the M word that shut you down at 10:30 that always used to drive my kids insane. We actually serve those egg sandwiches all day.
Mhm.
And, I think that's a big deal for us. We do a huge lunch. And as far as what sort of separates us kind of from everybody and where we've really pitched it with this expanding concept and really with these franchisees is we sort of throw three big chunks of revenue opportunities. Whereas, we have the revenue within the walls, the retail revenue, come in with the breakfast, the lunch, the dinner. Bagels obviously are our core items, sandwiches, soups, salads, all that good stuff within the four walls. Our next big thing is catering. We do a ton of catering, big with pharmaceutical reps,
Hmm.
huge with, unfortunately, funerals. We do a lot of funeral catering, do a
Interesting.
lot of wedding catering.
Mm-hmm.
We deliver to all the doctor's offices. They love picking them up, or we take them to it. So that's a big deal
Mm-hmm.
for them. And then the third big one that we do is wholesale. We do a very large wholesale business
Right.
between universities, hospitals. University of Michigan is our, going back to our Ann Arbor store.
Yeah.
Just being able to sell bagels, being able to sell anything before you even open at the beginning of the day is great.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a very unique opportunity that a lot of our competitors, like you mentioned, the Paneras, the Einsteins, that they don't do, and two, I don't even think they have the capacity to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people came to this conclusion 5 years ago that means they should do a ghost kitchen,
Right?
a virtual brand, which is great and fine and helped a
Yeah.
lot of brands through COVID. But I think long term, what you're talking about makes way more sense because it's still your core product. You don't have to spin up a whole new brand.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, I had a buddy who had a pizza shop by a hospital, and he had that account, and every week he was sending stacks and stacks of pizza to the hospital because they've got other things to do. They don't want to think about who are we getting pizza from. They just know that's good pizza right by. Let's just get that pizza. So it's just a matter of building those relationships at that point, right?
Yeah. It's easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. And again, I think the opportunity, because I think about like a Columbus, and I know we have one here right by my house. I'm not sure how much you've penetrated this market, but if you get that hub in a city like Columbus that is so big, I mean, you have university, you have hospital, you have government, you have so many different things, and your capacity in your hub, I imagine, becomes so key to that operation. Kind of now moving into sort of present and future.
Yeah.
You've built obviously this great system, great concept. And I imagine, just talking about franchise demand really quickly, where's that demand coming from? I mean, are you finding that it's mom and pop franchisees looking for second career, or is it people looking to fill a portfolio?
Yeah. So not the portfolio quite yet, and not the mom and pop shops. We're mostly selling territories. So
Hmm.
it's people looking as a career, looking to do territorial 3 to 5, sometimes more locations, that want to do this long term.
Hmm.
Like I said, I pitch it to everybody. They usually sort of bring me in as a quote unquote closer. I give you the good and the bad, and I try and give you to everything, because we want you to be successful, and we also don't want you to do it if you don't want to be in it. And like I had mentioned to you earlier, you'll get out of it what you put into it, and we want you to work it. We'd prefer you to be an owner operator. We
Hmm.
realize that that's not necessarily the case every time, but and I also realize that there are a lot of franchisees out there that do have a portfolio of other concepts, and there's nothing against that. But currently, yeah, most of our franchisees are are in it as a future for themselves,
Yeah.
and it's all been sort of word of mouth so far. We have not really done a whole lot of advertising to date. Every almost probably 80% of our franchises so far have some sort of a spin or a relationship of some sort from Toledo, whether they're from here or had a friend from here, or they've eaten here or something to that extent. And it's wild that's how we've sort of expanded
Yeah.
to this point.
Yeah. So thinking about again the future, and you got to look at the past in order to look at the future.
Yeah.
I mean, 53 years. So to take a sort of tangent real quick, the reason why I was in Ann Arbor last week was to visit another iconic long-term brand, and that is Domino's Pizza. With interesting parallels, because Domino's started in the same area out of Ann Arbor, but much older, actually. 1960 was when Domino's Pizza started. And then, with its fast delivered pizzas, grew. Of course, now it has 20,000 plus locations. But I think, if I could compare you real quick, Domino's, innovation has almost by necessity led the way because pizza, there's so much competition. They've innovated around technology, innovated around delivery processes, operations, and it's the remarkable pizza companies today because they're just constantly kind of changing the way people access their pizza. And it's remarkable to see a 60-year history of just like constantly kind of pushing that envelope. And if I look at 53 years of Barry Bagels, you know, you guys probably don't have nearly as much of that same pressure to kind of push things, but you're a much different business today than you were back then, simply because I'm sure you're doing third party delivery. I'm sure
For
you're
sure.
on you use online platforms and all of that. So where it leads me to wonder is just how much looking sort of into your crystal ball and what's the next thing for Barry Bagels, like how much do you want to really make this brand about something for the future, and how much do you want to make it something for what your dad stood for, which is knowing every customer's name and story and kind of keeping it rooted in that local community?
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting question. And there's a part of me that really wants both. I want for him, really I should say selfishly for me, I want his name up in lights on every storefront everywhere across the country. And it's funny you mentioned Domino's because I mentioned another pizza place, Marco's, which started here
Right,
in
Toledo.
Toledo, which Pat Giamarco who started Marco's, actually came to Toledo almost the same year as my dad, and they became very good friends. And
Interesting.
they have a zillion stores now. They expanded very quickly,
Yeah.
but there was a time where we were like sort of on the same trajectory. They just hit the rockets a lot quicker than us, but great people. And can we do both? Can we? I think we can. Keep, and that's we're growing slow. We try to stay. We've been trying to stay in the Midwest, sort of like these concentric circles, kind of around Northwest Ohio, so we can keep an eye on them. Get to each one within, you know, 2, 3, 4 hours. We've signed this sort of big chunk of stores in Texas, and that'll be an interesting new thing for us because it is out of our proximity. But yeah, we want to sort of keep that family feel to it. So,
Mhm.
uh, could we open up 50 stores a year? We could, but we're on purpose trying to open up 3 to 5, maybe 10 at the most, to give each one that sort of personal feel and do it the way my dad envisioned us doing it.
Yeah.
Could things change? They could. But yeah, I would love to take us global. I want to see his name in lights, but I want to do it the right way.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, like, we don't want to close any stores.
Right.
I want to keep them all open, and I only want to look forward. I don't want to look backwards.
Sure.
I would rather open less stores over time than open a zillion stores and half of them closed.
Right. Well, and you have franchisee success to consider too. You don't
Yes,
want your franchisees sinking their life savings into a business and then it not work out. So
absolutely.
that makes a lot of sense. What is the thing, thinking about getting your dad's name into, in lights globally? What's the thing that's going to stop you from doing that? Aside from just growth pace, because you can do that any pace you want. It doesn't take, you don't have to
Sure.
race, but
Right.
other challenges that stand in your way. What do you think those could be?
I think today just the job markets. I don't think AI is going to bust us up like any like some of these other jobs. I worry about my kids and the things that they want to do.
Yeah.
AI is a little spooky there. I think our food hits all the right points. I think we're popular, we're priced right, we're healthy. I think the only thing that could really shoot us down would be, possibly labor market issues again. I don't think competition. I mean, I joke, all restaurants are our competition,
Yeah.
right? People are, when you mention the Paneras and the corner bakeries, they're like, are you worried about if a Panera opens up? Well, I worry about any restaurant that opens up, because if a Chinese restaurant opens up down the way and you go to eat there tomorrow, that means you didn't eat at my place
Yeah.
today.
Hmm.
You can only eat Well, I mean, I guess I could eat a couple lunches because I get hungry, but can really only eat one lunch or one breakfast or one dinner each day. So all restaurants are competition. So really the only thing that can honestly hold us up would be just food in general. But I don't see that as a problem because we like opening up in strip centers or whatnot with other restaurants because you have a family of five and maybe not necessarily everybody likes or wants to eat a deli sandwich today. And,
Yeah.
I've had it with my kids where, two of them might want this and one might want something else that's right next door.
Hmm.
So I don't see anything really holding us back right now. Can the future change? Sure. But it seems like all green lights right now.
That's great. All right, Mark, last question for you. You mentioned your,
Sure.
and I'm curious, is there a plan for this to be a third generation leadership? Do you talk much to your kids about how you inherited this and they could too?
Yeah, we talk about it, and then we joke that the old saying, second generation expands it, third generation bombs it, and so hopefully that's not them. I do. I have one that's a second year, a sophomore in college, one that's going to be a freshman in college next year. We talk about it. They've never really asked what I'm going to do with it, and I don't think any of them assume. I have three boys.
Mm,
I don't think any of them assume that they're going to just get it. If they show interest, I'm happy to do it for them. I'm trying to grow it so it does stay. I would love for it to stay in the family.
hmm.
It is, like my dad said, I can see why he was pushing me in other directions. It is hard work. I mean, it is. I tell every franchisee it's hard work. It's 7 days a week. It's 24/7. It's very gratifying work. It's it's fulfilling. It's given me a wonderful life, and it'll give them a wonderful life. And I tell them, set your own hours and do your own thing. But you're going to get phone calls at 3 in the morning that a cooler blew up or, you know, this person called off or whatnot. So as long as you can handle that, it's great, but it's tough.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's 24/7. So my kids are prepared for that and that's what they want to do. I have no issue keeping it going for them. And if
Yeah.
they don't, then we'll figure that out when the time comes.
Sure. Well, you're in the right state for multi-generation businesses. I mean, if you look at Graders and White Castle, I think they're both
Yeah,
up to fifth and sixth generations.
it's
So
wild,
it can be
right?
done. It can be done.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark Greenblatt of Barry Bagels, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
That was my interview with Barry Bagel's Mark Greenblatt. So, what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 5 takeaways. My first takeaway is that you should consider the personification of your brand and lean into it for marketing. Barry Bagels is a unique name, and if you haven't caught it yet, it is just Barry Bagels, not Barry's Bagels, which I'm sure a lot of customers and even folks who've just been watching this brand have thought it was. They just assumed it was. It's a very common thing to have that possessive nature with the apostrophe S. But it is not the case for Barry Bagels, and Mark explained that in the interview why that was. Barry Greenblatt really saw himself as Barry Bagels. It was like his name, his identity. And he really kind of leaned into that over the, 40 years he was running this business before he passed away. And now Mark and the company have done this great job of really instilling the business with Barry's spirit, with his essence, with his personality. They have bobbleheads. They have other ways they've really kind of put Barry into the business. I mean, for crying out loud, it's called Barry Bagels. Mark, joked. He's like never going to name it Mark Bagels. It is about Barry and the hard work he put into this business, the relationships that he built, the hospitality that he really instilled in every community where they opened up one of the Barry Bagels locations. And I think, again, what you can learn from this is that when you have that sort of personality behind the brand, a person, a face, an identity, it's easier for customers to put their trust in you. They build a relationship with you. They like something that's more human, not a faceless entity that happens to sell food. Barry Bagels has this really unique opportunity to use Barry kind of as a character, not in a goofy kind of way, but in a way that says, hey, Barry stood for great hospitality, great product, great service, and he was a real icon in his community. And we're going to put him forward in this business because that's who we want to represent going forward. What is the personification of your own brand? How do you give your brand a face? Maybe it's you as a founder, as a leader. Maybe it's somebody else. But either way, you should consider what is the personification? What's the personality that we are leading with? How do we build trust with our relationships through that personality? And then really put that through in your marketing. Because again, it's going to be how you build trust with both your existing guests and your potential guests. My second takeaway is that brand leaders must lead by example if they expect hard work. I really wanted to talk to Mark because I think it's such a unique thing to be a second generation leader of a brand who inherits a business from their parent and now is responsible for growing it or putting their own mark on it. And, Mark said that one of the main things he learned from his dad was the value of hard work. He saw his dad working in the business every single day. He was behind the counter, making sandwiches, talking to guests, remembering guests' names. He wasn't just behind a desk somewhere in an office. He was in all of the shops, traveling around to the shops every day to be able to be that hard worker, to set that example for other people in the business. Mark says he does the same thing now too. And I think this is such a great idea because even if you're the president or CEO or founder of a company, no matter how big you grow, you are setting an example for those who come after you. It's like that idea of culture that trickles down. People are looking to you for the example that you set. So if you expect them to work hard, you should work hard too, whether that's being in your restaurants or some other responsibility. Show your team the hard work that you expect out of them so they will reflect that back to you. My third takeaway is that your dumbest mistakes are a chance to learn your biggest lessons. This was such a fun story from Mark. I think it's definitely worth pausing and considering because I'm sure you've been there before too. But this story from Mark about how they were building this new location and they got to the place where they were opening it and then realized they didn't put a bagel oven in. When you're a bagel company, that's kind of a big deal. You need a bagel oven. And so they started running product from another close by location. And in the process, realized, hey, maybe we could have a hub and spoke model. Maybe we could do this in other markets where we just run fresh product from one location to the other and skip putting a bagel oven into that location altogether, thereby maybe saving cost and saving space. Indeed, that's exactly what they figured out how to do. But it's important to say that, Mark can laugh about it now. It probably seemed really ridiculous at the time. But when you make a big mistake, you might feel stupid. It might seem like the dumbest thing you've ever done. But just stop and look at the mistake you've made and see what you can learn from it. Obviously, rectify it how you can, but learn from that mistake too. And whatever lesson you need to learn, just accept that and move on and realize you don't have to let that mistake linger. You can just grow, adapt, and maybe just maybe you can come up with some sort of innovative idea out of that mistake. So speaking of all of that, my fourth takeaway is that a hub and spoke growth model gives you a great real estate flexibility. So Mark makes this stupid mistake. He moves on. He says, hey, maybe we can do this hub and spoke growth model where we can not have to put a bagel oven into every location. And it's really working for them now. And as he says, they can find a B location for the hub, but then have the flexibility of shrinking down the footprint for the spokes and giving them that ability to find that A+ location. Barry Bagels has very large locations, very large footprints for some of their restaurants, so that they can have a lot of dine-in business, so that they can feed lunch, dinner, as well as breakfast. And they can't always get those A locations with that footprint that they need to have the kitchen with the bagel oven and the dine-in and everything else that they want. So having this hub and spoke growth model where it's just the one location in a market that they need to be the large footprint with the oven, and then get those great spots all around the city that they're in, the market that they're in, that are smaller and don't have all the bells and whistles that they might have in their flagship, but it does have the ability to access fresh product from the hub. This is a great way to grow. It's not for everybody. It's not for every business, depending on your menu, of course, and what you need on site to produce a high quality product. But for a bagel business, this makes a ton of sense, and they really made it work for them. Again, Mark learned this by making a mistake by not putting a bagel oven into one of the locations. Now this is something that they're able to tell franchisees, hey, buy out this market, build one hub in that market central to many different spokes, and you can be a lot more efficient running the business that way. You can find more A-plus locations, or at least be more flexible in your site selection, probably save some money along the way. My fifth and final takeaway is that catering is a bigger opportunity than you probably realize. Catering is no new strategy. It's been around forever, but it kind of comes and goes depending on, how the economy is and depending on businesses looking for new revenue models. Sometimes it might seem like some sort of niche operation that's not really a fit for you. Maybe it seems too complex for you. But I am here to say, and Mark was here to confirm, catering is potentially major business for your brand, depending on your menu and depending on your location. Mark went through all of the opportunities he's found in catering, so I won't repeat all of them here, but I love that idea that pharmaceutical reps have embraced Barry Bagels and its catering, because pharmaceutical reps might travel around to doctors, hospitals, and others they're trying to sell to, and bring a Barry Bagels catering order with them. That's a catering function I never really considered. Maybe you haven't either. Maybe that's not your target audience, and that's okay. But the point is as Mark outlined, have you thought about hospitals, colleges, and dorm rooms? Have you thought about some of these locations that need fresh food just as much as an office catering a meeting might need it? If catering seems like some simple thing where you're just serving to those offices, you're thinking too small. Catering can be much bigger than that. And it can open up a very large new revenue channel for you if you get it right. So heed Mark's advice and lean into catering, figure out a way to make it work for your business. And it could be great, not only for your sales, but potentially also for your marketing and possibly even for your franchising if there are new franchisees who discover your brand through that catering. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again, and talk to you next week.